Chapter 76. Sahyung, what is all this? Despite all the hard work we did, no one is praising us. Baekchun couldn't find the words to respond despite someone talking to him. It was because he too was surprised. Unexpectedly, there was a huge feast in front of them. From the perspective of the secular world, it may be somewhat lacking to be called a feast. However, for Mount Hua, this seemed no different from what would be eaten by an emperor. What's more, there was that. Isn't that meat? Baekchun rubbed his eyes. In front of his eyes was certainly food that had been acquired by killing a living animal and carving its flesh. How could a pure sect commit such an act? Where did the money come from? I'd like to know the same. Just where did Mount Hua even get such money? Where did the meat come from? Wait, Sahyung. Come to think of it, the inside of this place has also changed. I thought it might just feel awkward because we've been gone for so long. But doesn't it look shiny and clean? Now that you mention it, yes. Baekchun looked around. The entire building might not be newly built, but it looked like it had been recently renovated. All the holes in the walls were covered, and the whole place seemed to be fixed cleanly. There are new-looking halls, and now this place. There's even meat on the table. I can't imagine what happened in Mount Hua while we were away, unless some god of wealth descended onto this place. Baekchun smiled. God of wealth. Mount Hua is a sect that the god of wealth had abandoned. If any sect could compete with the Beggars' Union, it would be Mount Hua. No, even they might be richer than Mount Hua. Just because the Beggars' Union was a group of beggars didn't mean that the sect itself was poor. But for Mount Hua to have such wealth, why did it seem so out of place? Baekchun lifted his head and slightly looked at Eungum. Sasuk, this is food the finance head prepared to raise your spirits. Eat a lot. No, why is he speaking so casually about this? Sasuk used to say that he would survive solely on grass like a rabbit for the sake of Mount Hua. Where did that Sasuk go, and when did he switch sides like this? Even stranger was the reaction of the third-class disciples. The third-class disciples, who were there to congratulate the second-class disciples, didn't show any surprise at the quality of food placed in front of them. They just stared at the table sternly. Baekchun listened to their conversation from the side. I'm tired of meat. Isn't there anything different? Fish or something? Crazy bastard. Where will we find fish on the mountains? Do you need to be beaten with a fish to restore your senses? What the hell are those idiots talking about? What? They are tired of meat. Unable to understand the situation, Baekchun, who was frustrated, opened his mouth. No. He was about to open his mouth. Baekchun turned his head to the side to shut the mouths of his mates. Let's just eat first. We have money, so we get to eat meat. I was sick of having those pills for the past year. Baekchun, who felt suppressed by the laughs of others, opened his mouth. Is it alright to start eating? Even the elders and the sect leader haven't arrived yet. Huh? I didn't notice. Hold a moment. Yes, thank you. Eungum took his chopsticks and put a piece of meat in his mouth. That was the sign that the others could eat, and the Sahyungs frantically moved their chopsticks. Pak. Food bounced into the air, but there was nothing to worry about. The chopsticks caught everything in the air because it was precious meat that had to be treasured. Baekchun closed his eyes upon seeing everyone's behavior. He felt that he was staring deeply into the abyss. It might look exaggerated to others, but this was a normal reaction. Mount Hua was the poorest sect in the world, and the disciples were the poorest people in the world. They had only eaten food made with grains and a few nuts in all their time here. To say it politely, they served healthy meals, but truthfully, it was the cheapest diet that could be afforded. Besides, thanks to their closed-door training, the second-class disciples only had fasting pills for the past year. Some, like Baekchun, could purchase food with money when visiting family. However, most of the disciples hadn't so much as smelled the scent of meat for years already. Of course they were losing control of themselves. In the meantime, Baekchun looked at the third-class disciples leisurely eating their food. Looking at their nonchalant attitude, he realized that this food was nothing special in the current Mount Hua. Sasuk, Eungom, who was eating and drinking, turned his head and looked at Baekchun. What? Does the food suit your taste? It isn't like that. I just don't understand the situation. Just what happened to Mount Hua in the time we were all away. Right. I didn't think of this from your position. Eungom laughed. It's too long of a story to tell. You'll find out eventually. All you need to know is that a lucky star rolled into Mount Hua. Lucky star? It was then. Kwang! The door opened wide. The second-class disciples, who were gulping down meat, flinched and stopped at the sudden sound. If anyone could open the door so boldly, it had to be an elder. Huh? Are there any elders who are that young? As if. Surprisingly, the one who opened the door was Cheongmyeong. The child, who followed the sect leader earlier, entered in anger. There's a place to sit here. As Jogul slightly raised his hand, Cheongmyeong bowed to Eungom and then stomped over to the seat. Those nearby the seat moved away slightly so that he could sit comfortably. Baekchun narrowed his eyes at that sight. They're taking care of that child. Of course, it could happen if they were polite and good kids. But the third-class disciples Baekchun knew of were quick-witted and violent. The word good didn't fit well with them. There would be only one reason they would be acting like this. Has that child caught them all in the palm of his hands? It was unbelievable, but there was too much visible evidence to deny it. The fact that the seat was left for him, and the seat was in the center with Yoonjung and Jogul on either side. Yoonjung is the great Sahyong of the third-class disciples, and Jogul is the strongest of them all. So he took control of them both. But how could this child have turned them into his people? And why hasn't Eungom Sasuk said anything? It was quite rude to kick the door open. It would be troublesome, considering that there were second-class disciples and Eungom Sasuk inside. It would have been appropriate to apologize right away. Eungom Sasuk greatly values morals and manners, so he would definitely say something. Yet, he was casually eating like he didn't care. The more I think about it, the less I understand. Baekchun shook his head. In his eyes, he looked at Cheongmyeong talking to the others. Why are you so angry again? He wants me to go to the Eunha Guild again. Again? Right? I'm not some messenger. Yoonjung grinned at Cheongmyeong's complaint. But you liked it at first. That was only the first 1 or 2 times. Ugh. Cheongmyeong scratched his head. Fortunately, I only need to visit the branch in Hwaeum. If I had to go to Xi'an City, I would have fallen dead. Seeing Yoonjung smile and comfort him, and Jogul chuckle at the side, Baekchun became convinced. He has all the third-class disciples in his grasp. He wasn't sure what method was used, but it was certain that Cheongmyeong had power over them. In many ways. Baekchun smiled. Yoonjung, the great Sahyong of the third-class disciples, always treated the seniors with respect. Baekchun thought that Yoonjung would have bowed to someone kind, but Cheongmyeong didn't seem to have a kind inclination no matter how Baekchun looked at him. I'll have to find some time to have a conversation with him. While Baekchun was curious about the third-class disciples, Great Sahyong, aren't you going to eat? Ah, I will. Baekchun picked up his chopsticks, but he looked around soon after picking them up. Where is Yusame? Well, she was here a while ago. The 2 disciples looked around. She was there until we came into the dining hall. It seems like she went off somewhere. Everyone answered indifferently, like this happened a lot. But Baekchun didn't like that response. Shouldn't we look for her? This banquet is for all of us who went training. We should wait until we're all together to have fun and celebrate. But there is no one who can find Yusame. If she doesn't want to be found, we can't find her. It'll be a waste of energy, Great Sahyong. Baekchun's forehead scrunched together. Those who saw it turned their heads away, feeling uncomfortable and sighing. Yu Yisol was a bizarre person. It wasn't easy to find her unless she wanted to show herself. But since Baekchun had this stiff expression, they had to at least pretend to search for her. Sahyung favors Yusame too much. He was normally a calm person that was fair to others, but he would always lose his composure over any issue involving Yu Yi-sol. Well, it wasn't like they couldn't understand, but it was annoying for them. At the moment, when one of them was about to get up, the shut door opened slowly. Everyone's eyes were upon the entrance. Through the sunlight pouring in through the open door, a woman walked in with small steps. "Same," Baekchun called. Yu Yi-sol, who came inside, scanned the surroundings as if trying to find someone. Smiling, Baekchun raised his hand. "Same, over here." Yu Yi-sol started to walk, but it was in a direction away from Baekchun. Step, step. Yu Yi-sol, who walked with a smooth gait, reached her destination and stared intently at the person sitting ahead of her. Baekchun's eyes twitched. Yu Yi-sol asked the man in front of her, "Can I sit here?" The second-class disciples, especially the men, were shocked enough for their eyes to pop out of their sockets. "Did Yusame talk to a man? No, when was the last time we even heard her talk?" But the shock wasn't over. The man she talked to was Chongmyung. He responded with annoyance written all over his face and waved his hand like shooing away a fly. "No, you can't." "Then let's talk for a moment." Chongmyung firmly answered, "No, I don't want to talk to you. Go away." Is he crazy? The color drained from the faces of the second-class disciples as they reeled in shock.